In the words of Václav Havel, a Czech statesman, author, poet, playwright, and indeed the first president of the Czech Republic, the hope of the world lies in the rehabilitation of the living human being, not just the body, but also the soul. You're watching NAPTIP On The Move. I'm Angela Abwegi. A critical component of NAPTIP's work is rehabilitation of trafficked victims and survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Now, what does this entail? You'll find out if you stay with NAPTIP On The Move.
The effects of human trafficking can be severe. They include physical and psychological abuse, vulnerability to sexually transmitted diseases, abuse of fundamental human rights, stigmatization, and more. Considering these conditions, for trafficked victims to function properly in a society, rehabilitation is inevitable.
In simple terms, trafficking in person is when one person controls another person for the purpose of exploitation, and this control could be short-term or it could be long-term. Rehabilitation and reintegration plays a very important role in empowering such victims after their exploitation, and we know that exploitation comes in various forms. The most common form of exploitation is sexual exploitation. Then we have forced labor. Now, when we talk about rehabilitation and reintegration, it simply means to rehabilitate and reintegrate victims of traumatic events like human trafficking and other forms of violence back into society so that they can live their lives how they used to, or better still, live their lives how they desire to. Though no victim will ever, forget the traumatic experience they've been through, whether it's short-term or long-term. They can, however, learn to manage these experiences to enable them function properly in society. And if victims are unable to get the help that they need, it will definitely affect their quality of life moving forward. They will constantly live in fear. They'll suffer from paranoia, where they believe everyone is out to get them, which is why reintegration and rehabilitation is very key.
Rehabilitation and reintegration are key components in NAPTIP's operations.
When talking about rehabilitation, it's not an event. It is a process which takes time. It takes effort, and it costs a lot of money. So no two victims are the same. As such, they must have their own personalized care pathway to recovery. So critical factors in rehabilitation that must be considered in designing a personalized care pathway for victims include the victim's age, the psychosocial health of that person, what is their background, what was the duration of the exploitation. You have people who were exploited for maybe like a month or for 2 months, while you have others that were exploited for years. You have people that were trapped in forced prostitution for 3 years, for 4 years, for 5 years. So of course the personalized care pathway for people who were exploited short term is definitely different from those who were exploited long term. Then of course we also have to consider the perception of damage done to that person and also their future as a result of that, of them being trafficked, especially, like I said, victims of commercial sexual exploitation. Which is why when we talk about rehabilitation and reintegration, it has to be strategic, it has to be deliberate, and it has to be sustainable. So at NAPTIP we have a counseling and rehabilitation department that is saddled with the responsibility for counseling, providing aftercare rehabilitation to victims, provide social reintegration and education for trafficked persons. So the entire department was set up to promote the welfare of victims as well as support them.
For effective rehabilitation, NAPTIP operates shelters across the country.
We have 13 shelters across Nigeria, including the FCT, and the shelters are structured in a way that victims are expected to stay there for a short period of time, say maximum 6 weeks. But of course, in reality, the shelter does not operate as a transit shelter because of various reasons. We have victims that stay with us during the prosecutorial period of their cases, and we know that prosecuting these crimes sometimes takes time. So the victims will have to stay with us for the period of that, just for easy access. It's because they are key to the outcome of the case. When some of them leave, it is difficult to track them or invite them back so that they can give testimony in court. Then we also have situations where we are not able to trace a victim's family on time. Then we also have other cases where we trace families, but families are not willing to take these victims back. What do we do in situations like that?
The rehabilitation process in NAPTIP is all-encompassing.
Rehabilitation of victims of human trafficking in NAPTIP is a process that we all enjoy doing so much, especially in the counseling and rehabilitation department. When a victim comes to the agency, the victim is automatically brought to the shelter. Okay, at the shelter we receive the victim warmly to ensure that the victim is happy, make the victim relax, and show much interest in what we're doing and be able to open up. At that reception time, you just do a little profiling of the victim to know the age, the name, the state of origin, and all that. And at that time is when you will also discover whether the victim has any form of physical injury or abuse or all that, the level of vulnerability. And that will also make you, if the victim comes with abuse, physical injury, you immediately refer the victim to the clinic. We have a nurse in our shelter who will give medical assistance to the victim immediately and take him or her to the matron Okay, the matron will now assign a room. We have different apartments in our shelter. We have for the female victims and we have for the male victims. Then also in assigning them room, classify them according to their age. We also try to let the victims at the shelter receive the new incoming victims. Then the victim feels a bit okay and happy before you assign a counselor to the victim. The counselor will now start to look at the victims and look at her case and know what has happened. Then something like that medical assistance, upon arrival, 48 hours upon arrival, even if the victim is not having any form of ailment, we'll still carry on some medical checks on that victim to ensure that she or she is okay. And at the shelter there, we have our established vocational centers where we train the victims on different activities, hairdressing, bead making, and other activities at the shelter. We also have the UBEB teachers who come almost every day at the shelter to take them on educational needs. So the victim receive all those interventions at the shelter while their case is going on, because the counselor will be working with the victim and be able to know what has happened, develop case history and care plans for the victim. So the victim at the same time is doing a lot of things, and these are also helping her to stabilize. It's all encompassing. Everybody is all hands are on deck to ensure that everything are going on fine while working with the victim. Then when the victim has received all those vocational activities, we do family tracing. We can also call the families. We bring the victim to the head office to meet with the family. Most times we also do our family tracing down to the victim's village through our zonal commands and state commands. If the case is not going to court, because sometimes a case that is going to court, the victim might stay a little longer at the shelter, because it will be difficult to reunite the victim and be requesting for the victim, in a short while. So the victim, and while you are doing all that, you have to get the consent of the victim. Let her know everything, that you are going to stay a little bit because your case it looks like it will go to court. At any point in time, the counselor keep counseling the victim to ensure that he's stable at all time at the shelter.
As part of its rehabilitation process, NAPTIP empowers victims to ensure self-reliance.
We also carry out empowerment programs. The agency, our DG, has done a lot in the area of empowerment. Last year we conducted empowerment in all our zonal commands, and it was all encompassing. The victims were so excited to receive a lot of empowerment package from the agency. And in doing that, we also most times we liaise with our donor partners, international organizations and other line ministries in carrying out empowerment of the victims. So we do follow up and the aftercare services. After 6 years we disengage. The agency has done so well in rehabilitation of victims, because I can tell you that since I joined NAPTIP, we have been on our feet in the area of rehabilitation to ensure that the victims are happy at all time, so that they will not be re-trafficked. Because it's not a success story when a victim finishes staying at the shelter and tomorrow you are hearing that the victim has traveled back again. It's not a success story. So we try hard to make sure that the victim leaves the agency happy and be a productive member of the society.
Since inception, NAPTIP has rehabilitated and reintegrated so many victims of trafficking and violence against persons.
The department has received over 19,000 victims since inception of the agency in 2003. In 2022 alone, the agency rescued 2,743 victims of human trafficking. We had 233 male minors, 688 female minors, 363 male adults, and 1,459 female adults. We had 45 victims of inward trafficking. So these are people trafficked into Nigeria. Then we had 251 victims that were returned from abroad. So these are Nigerians that were trafficked to various countries and returned back to Nigeria. Then we had 1,484 victims that were intercepted at various border points by the Nigerian Immigration Service and handed over to NAPTIP. So at our shelters, in addition to sheltering victims, we feed them, we clothe them, provide medical support, we provide psychosocial support, we provide legal assistance, we provide rehabilitation and reintegration support. So the rehabilitation support could be formal, it could be informal. So formal, we're talking about educational opportunities. So victims who are willing to go back to school to continue their education and have a knack for education, we support them in doing that. Then victims who rather have economic opportunities, we support them in what they want to do, not what we think they should do. Then we also provide extended psychosocial care. And since inception, NAPTIP has supported 19 victims of human trafficking, 2 university level and 3 actually work with the agency. And we are currently supporting about 35 victims of human trafficking and other forms of violence to schools.
NAPTIP shelters all victims, irrespective of nationality.
Section 61 of the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act of 2015 as reenacted provides that NAPTIP must ensure that a trafficked person is not subjected to any kind of discrimination on account of their race, whether it's their sex or their age or their color or gender, language, religion, including their status as a victim of trafficking or having worked in the sex industry. This section is basically a reminder for us to be non-judgmental to victims of human trafficking. So our shelters caters for all persons, including foreigners. Last year, our command in Kebbi received victims from Niger Republic, and our command in Kano equally received victims from Benin Republic and also from Cameroon. Our shelter here in Abuja received a Namibian and had 3 children, and they stayed at the shelter for about 4 months up until their travel papers were ready and they left. And also in 2021, I also remember a Sri Lankan also stayed at our shelter for about 6 months.
Rehabilitation of victims can be challenging.
Everything in life has challenges. We are facing a lot of challenges too. Okay, the issue of victim not wanting to talk because of reprisal attack from the traffickers. When we receive victims at the shelter, initially they will be scared, they will be keeping to themselves. You have to do a little more effort to make them, open up, because some of them who have taken oaths and all kinds of agreements with the traffickers, their minds are still there. So they are thinking that maybe the trafficker will go after them. Then there are sometimes delay in court proceedings. So victims whose cases are going to court, sometimes the court will not see it, or the court will be adjourned. So all these are making the victim feel a little bit uncomfortable, and affects rehabilitations because sometimes they want to go home. And if the case is not coming up the way it should do or closing up the way it should do, the victim might start getting upset with the rehabilitation activities.
Here is a word for the public.
So as individuals, let's continue to treat victims as victims and not as criminals. Victims of human trafficking deserve our solidarity and not our condemnation. And if you are inspired by their stories, please act by supporting causes aimed at curbing human trafficking and violence against persons. Support government institutions that work in this space. Be the reason why somebody believes in the goodness of humanity.
Rehabilitation and reintegration of victims is not a walk in the park. However, NAPTIP is equal to the challenge and will consistently ensure that trafficked victims and survivors of sexual and gender-based violence are given a new lease of life.
We hope you were enlightened. Our event segment will be on shortly. His Royal Highness Chief Emmanuel Gade, the district head of Pigba Garki Chiefdom in the Abuja Municipal Area Council, and his team recently paid a courtesy visit to the management of NAPTIP.
I have passion for NAPTIP personally, not because of anything, because I know how they contribute, and at the same time I know how NAPTIP are working. Without NAPTIP, sometimes the community will not move in the normal way. So for that, I have a lot of challenge in my community, and sometimes due to some lecture that I've been receiving from the NAPTIP and other agencies. That is why I say thank you, because I have seen the way forward. I have seen the progress that the lecture that I've been receiving. Because sometimes people used to come from NAPTIP and organize my women, my children, especially female children, and give them the lecture. After the lecture, I used to see the changing. That is why I create this specific time to come and tell you thank you.
Receiving His Royal Highness and his team, the Director General of NAPTIP, Professor Fatima Waziri Azi, commended them on the feedback and efforts from the community.
Feedback will make us know what we are doing well and what we are not doing well. And for you to say that when NAPTIP and other organizations come to the community and do sensitization, and there is now an incremental change in the attitude of community members, that is a good feedback for us, because we know that measuring the impact of sensitizations is very difficult and it takes a while. But for Your Royal Highness to come here and say that they are seeing the positive impact, for us that is good news.
She then assured the team of the agency's continued support on their efforts against human trafficking and violence against persons. The Federal High Court in Sokoto State, presided over by Honorable Justice Ahmed G. Mahmood, has sentenced a 22-year-old man, Moses Dawaki, to 2 years imprisonment for abduction, sale of a baby, and conspiracy contrary to and punishable under Section 13, subsection 2b, Section 21 and Section 27A of the Trafficking in Persons, Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act 2015. Also, Honorable Justice Ahmed G. Mahmood sentenced a 30-year-old man, Moses Solomon, to 2 years imprisonment for abduction, sale of a baby and conspiracy. Finally, in Sokoto State, Honorable Justice Ahmed G. Mahmood of the Federal High Court also sentenced a 34-year-old man, Samson John, to 3 years imprisonment for abduction, sale of a baby and conspiracy. So far, NAPTIP has secured 19 convictions in 2023. Our Victim Story segment is up next. Don't go away.
I've been a traveler. I've traveled also many parts of the world. So when I came back to Nigeria, that was 2017. I made some calls. I reached out to some of my friends in Ghana, and they told me that this iPhone business is booming in Ghana, that I should come over to Ghana to start up the business. So the money I had small money with me when I came back from outside country, so I decided to take up loan to add up with the one I had. I traveled to Ghana to start up the business, and I was doing well since 2017. It happened late to 19 and early to 20 when they attacked Nigerians in Accra. My shop was looted, and I lost everything I had in my shop, alongside some of the Nigerians that were there. So because of the fear of the unknown from the person I took the loan from, I was afraid to come back to Nigeria. So I met some Nigerians in Accra, and I was advised that we should go to Spain through desert. So ignorantly, I followed them. We left Ghana to Burkina Faso, from Burkina Faso to Mali, and from Mali to Mauritania. When we got to Mauritania, they could not allow us to enter the country because we did not have a visa. Because we were instructed that we must have visa on arrival. So we did not have visa. So we decided to follow their desert. We followed Mauritanian desert to Morocco. We're 7 in number. Then from Morocco to Spain. We got in Spain and deported back to Morocco. So right there in Morocco, they took us to the Sahara desert and they abandoned us there. So we were 7 in number. 4 people died in the desert and 3 of us survived. We were rescued by Mauritanian police and they took us to Mauritania. Thereafter, we were taken to Nigerian embassy in Bamako, that is Mali. That was when they gave me official letter to come back to Nigeria. Well, I would never advise even my worst enemy to travel out to the country, out of the country without planning well. Because what I saw in adventure was really terrible. I would advise people to travel out in a regular way, not an irregular way, without planning well.
For more inquiries and support, or to report cases of suspected human trafficking, violence against persons, and child abuse, please call NAPTIP hotline 0703 0000203 or the short code 627, or email us info@naptip.gov.ng. Visit our website www.naptip.gov.ng. Follow us on our social media platforms at NAPTIP Nigeria, or watch our videos on YouTube.
We could go on, but time simply will not permit. We thank you for watching and urge you to keep a date with us next week. My name is Angela Agbegi. We hope to have you with us again soon.